story of misdeclaration of assets. The misdeclaration has been done by none other than the current sitting Prime Minister of Pakistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan. From 2005 to 2010, Prime Minister Khan does not declare this property. And in 2010, when Prime Minister Khan declares it on his tax returns, it is not declared as a purchase. It is declared as an inheritance. So not only is it declared as an inheritance versus the fact, which is that it was a purchase, the value assigned is zero. To fund Pakistan's most impactful news startup, visit our GoFundMe page and contribute to our goal.
Hello, this is Tahir Imran for Fact Focus, and today we are going to discuss a very important story in the political history of Pakistan, and this is about misdeclaration of assets. As you know, in Pakistan, every politician or anybody who aspires to become a public office holder has to declare his assets before elections, and these declarations are very important. There has been cases where people have been disqualified for a long period of time. They have been removed from offices because of non-declaration. And this case is very important in that sense, and that is why assets declaration or hiding information from public or election commission by any public office holder, whether it is a prime minister or it is a minister or parliamentarian, is a serious issue. Today, we have a very important story about Ferozwala files. That is a big story that Fact Focus is breaking. And to discuss that story, we have the reporter of the story, Shumaisa Rahman, with us. And we are going to start asking her what are the Ferozwala files and why they are so important, and the story behind Ferozwala file. Thank you very much, Shumaisa, for joining. So let's start with the first question.
The reason why we have referred to this specific story as Ferozwala files is because Ferozwala is the place where the land is situated, which was misdeclared by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, and his siblings. The misdeclaration has been done by none other than the current sitting Prime Minister of Pakistan, Prime Minister Imran Khan. So in 1996, the father of Prime Minister Imran Khan, Mr. Ikramullah Khan Niazi, was given the power of attorney for approximately 500 canals of land in Ferozwala by a certain woman named Miss Nighat Iram. Miss Nighat Iram was the widow. She passed away. She's deceased now. She was the widow of the former Punjab police chief, a very influential man named Shah Nazir Alam. He basically handed over this property as inheritance to her and to his three sons from his previous marriage, I guess through some sort of settlement. This particular land in Ferozwala came to Miss Nighat Iram. She gave the power of attorney to Prime Minister Khan's father in 1996. Now, the power of attorney was given in 96. In 2004, this land was sold to Prime Minister Khan and his sisters for a total sum of 70 lakh rupees by their father, who had the power of attorney. The two documents that are also available for yourself and for the audience members, for any reader to see, that verify this is that in 2004, you have two documents that are very critical. The first one is the purchase document. The purchase document shows that an amount of 70 lakhs was paid and a purchase agreement was signed, wherein the land was therefore purchased by Prime Minister Khan and his sisters. Then you have another document. The second document is actually, when you have the land registry document, which is an extremely important one, because that shows the purchase of land which was from Miss Iram to Prime Minister Khan and his sisters. As you can see from the second document, the land was transferred from Nighat Iram's name to the names of Prime Minister Khan and his siblings, which is evidently clear. Once the land has been transferred officially, it has to be declared.
What is the big fuss about? Misdeclaration or not showing the whole assets or everything? I mean, yes, Pakistanis understand, but others who don't understand the Pakistani politics or Pakistani circumstances, would you explain that?
Why would a misdeclaration of assets be such a critical story? To understand the significance of this, one has to put into the Pakistani context. In Pakistan, a misdeclaration of assets specifically to people that are elected officials has in the past been used not just to remove them from office, but to permanently bar them from ever holding office again.
Okay, I get the story, but where is the misdeclaration here? Because the property was given to Ikramullah Niazi, he had a Mukhtarnama or power of attorney, and so on. So what is the misdeclaration here?
The misdeclaration starts post 2004 and continues. Now you have to also bear in mind that at this point in 2004, Prime Minister Khan was an elected member of Parliament, right? So when we talk about scrutinizing documents, about being crystal clear about your assets, misdeclaration, non-declaration, elected officials are scrutinized very, very critically. Imran Khan's father died in March 2008. And so then it was in 2009 that his sister Alima Khan first declared it, and then in 2010 that Imran Khan declared it. But they both declared it as an inheritance, not as a purchase. From 2005 to 2010, Prime Minister Khan does not declare this property. He doesn't declare it. His sister declares it in 2009. He goes on to declare it in 2010, and now wait for it. We just discussed that the land was purchased, as is evident by two documents, for 70 lakh rupees. In 2009, when his sister declares it on her tax returns, and in 2010, when Prime Minister Khan declares it on his tax returns, it is not declared as a purchase. It is declared as, in 2010, when Prime Minister Khan declares it on his tax returns, it is not declared as a purchase. It is declared as an inheritance.
Hold on. So let me get it straight. What you are saying is that we have documents which says that Ikramullah Niazi had this property on a power of attorney. Then we have documents that prove that this property was sold to Imran Khan and his sisters for 70 lakh rupees. And then what did I miss? Where this inheritance comes from?
Now, wait for this, it gets even better. So not only is it declared as an inheritance versus the fact, which is that it was a purchase, the value assigned is zero.
Okay, for the benefit of audiences who are watching and listening this and don't understand a lot of technical jargon or legal stuff, what powers a power of attorney, quote unquote, gives to the person who holds it?
The person who is given the power of attorney is only allowed to execute the transaction. They are not the owners of the property. Therefore, his father, Mr. Niazi, had no authority whatsoever to actually gift it, or the kids could not have inherited it. The only thing he could have done was actually sell the property. Why would somebody who is aware of the law not go ahead and declare it, and then once they do declare it, misdeclare it?
You have already asked the right question. So my question is, fine, that is understandable that there was a misdeclaration and this property was not mentioned, and then the way it was mentioned is problematic in itself. And before I ask you what happened to this property, there's a lot of noise about other properties or other misdeclarations as well. What are those, and how they give us an idea about what's going on here?
That is the reason why we have all these other stories which some people are aware of. Some information has been publicly available before, some not so much. That is why we have actually included these corollary or subsidiary stories which substantiate this.
Okay, so I would love to hear more about what are these correlatory stories and what is that? I'm all ears.
So let's look at the ones that people are kind of aware of. And you would think, oh, where's the story in this, right? So you're aware that when the cricket team won a rather huge match overseas, and I believe the Chief Minister of Punjab at that point, Prime Minister Khan was then, I think, the captain of the cricket team. The Chief Minister of Punjab at that time decided to give each of the players who were on the team some land, which is perfectly okay. Prime Minister Khan also received that land. The only caveat was that only the players who did not own land were eligible to actually go ahead and get that land. You had to sign an affidavit saying that you did not own any other property. And once you did that, then you were eligible to get this land. So at that point in time, Prime Minister Khan did own property. And at the same time, he did go ahead and avail of the plot that was given. This is the first one.
Now, this is genuinely baffling because you have a property, but because you are not eligible for this plot, so you tell the government that you don't own a property so that you can have a free plot.
The second one would be that, we've heard him talk about, I think it was in the Peshawar.
प्लॉट मुझे किसी ने हाउसिंग साइकिल तरीके साहब का ये हमारा एक मेंबर था, तो उसने कहा कि आप यहाँ 20 कनाल के में हाउसिंग फार्म्स बना रहे हैं, तो हम आपको चाहते हैं कि आप भी यहाँ एक प्लॉट ले लें ताकि आपके आने से और भी लोग आ जाएंगे। वो समझे मैं बलीगाला गया हूँ, तो बलीगाला भी तब से डेवलप हो गया, तो उन्होंने समझा ये भी हो जाएगा, तो उन्होंने मुझे एक मुफ्त प्लॉट दे दिया। मैं भूल गया, पिछले साल उन्होंने मुझे याद कराया कि आपको पता है कि प्लॉट की कीमत 50 लाख पहुंच गई है। तो मैंने कहा चलो ठीक है, मैं शौकत खान के नाम कर देता हूँ। मैंने सोचा इस साल पर ये अल्लाह का करना है, ये अल्लाह का करना है, क्योंकि पैसा सारा हम तो कोशिश करते हैं, नियत करते हैं, तो मदद अल्लाह करता है। एकदम मुझे पता चला कि उसके साथ एक बड़ी हाउसिंग सोसाइटी लगी और वो प्लॉट उसके अंदर आ गया। तो आपको खुशी होगी सुनकर, मुझे आपसे ज्यादा खुशी है कि उस प्लॉट की कीमत 5 करोड़ हो गई और मैं वो 5 करोड़ शौकत खान को दे रहा हूँ, पेशावर को।
Now this plot, this is something that he himself is saying in a rally. He's saying there is a plot, okay, and I'm going to donate this plot. However, this plot does not show up anywhere in his tax declaration at any point.
I get that. I mean, after watching the video and then the questions you are asking, but maybe he forgot. Maybe he's a very, very forgetful person and he doesn't keep a very thorough record of every transaction he makes. No?
How much forgetfulness is forgetfulness and how much forgetfulness is just, not wanting.
Now let's move on to Niazi Services Limited, the famous offshore company Imran Khan held, and at a very interesting time.
This was when the slogan was that only those people have offshore companies that are trying to hide ill-gotten or corrupt wealth. So when it was pointed out that he himself had an offshore company, he said very simply that, look, this offshore company was founded to purchase an apartment in 1984, I believe, in London. And that was the sole purpose of this offshore company, to basically, facilitate, save on taxes, and that was it. So at that point, the court, based on the evidence that they were given, made a judgment, and they said, look, here's the thing. If this offshore company that you are talking about was made or created or facilitated for the sole purpose of the purchase of this apartment, then you know what, it's a non-issue, and he has already declared the apartment under the tax amnesty scheme. So, it's okay.
I understand, because there was a lot of debate about it, and then the Supreme Court of Pakistan heard the case, and then he was given a clean chit. So what's the fuss about here?
But the Supreme Court of Pakistan, based on the evidence that they were given, made the right decision at the time. Because it is true that, he had declared the apartment under the amnesty scheme. And therefore, if there was an offshore company that was used to, facilitate it, so be it. So they were completely fine in their judgment. What people are not aware of, and again, this is, Prime Minister Khan declaring this himself, in order to substantiate, excuse me, that he actually had the means to purchase this property, he released account information. Now, the accounts information that he released were related to these offshore companies, okay? The total cost of the apartment was £160,000, I believe. That includes the mortgage that he put down, the interest payments that were made, the maintenance, and so on and so forth. Now, the documents that Prime Minister Khan released on social media, and FYI, they are only 5-year documents, like basically these accounts, we don't have 14 or 15-year documents showing the accounts information. These are 5-year documents. In those 5-year documents, the transactions, when you look at them, amount to approximately somewhere close to around, £300,000. So approximately, I think, £290,000 or something. Now, there is a gap of at least £130,000. If the accounts were only being used for the purchase of that property, it should have stopped at 160. How do you explain the other £130,000 transaction that happened through those accounts? That's my question.
Now, that's a very valid question, because if there is more money in it, what that money is doing for, what that money was for, what happened to that money, and then his whole stance in front of Supreme Court comes into question as well.
The fact is, the total cost of the apartment, soup to nuts, was £160,000 approximately. What were the other £130,000 for?
So now, after looking at these 3 examples, the Niazi Services Limited, the Peshawar plot, the plot that he got from Punjab government, and then the biggest of all of these, Ferozwala files, that's very interesting connection. It has a very, very unique element into it.
Ferozwala property that was purchased in 2004, why was it not declared as a purchase property in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9? That's a good question. And in order to answer that question is why I'm going into all of these other, stories that people are aware of, but perhaps not into the details that I'm going into.
Now, coming to the recently popular word, Toshakhana. I mean, what is it?
For people that are not very familiar with that term, basically, any gifts that are received by government officials in Pakistan, and this happens, this is common practice in all parts of the world, where when you visit or are visited by foreign dignitaries, it is customary to sort of exchange gifts. We give gifts, we get gifts. Now, those gifts in Pakistan are not for the individual that they are given to. They belong to the government of Pakistan. So they are deposited in a place called the Tosha Khana. The Tosha Khana is basically a name given to a place. It's a physical place as well, but it's a name given to a place where all of these gifts are stored and kept, unless, of course, now there is a caveat to this, that the individual or any individual wants to purchase them. Now, if they choose to purchase one of these gifts that they have been given, they can pay right now. And FYI, the rules keep changing as to how much and how little, but these days, under this current government, if you would like to purchase a gift that, you have been given, actually the state has been given, you have to pay 50% of that amount, of the total value of the gift. The value of the gift is also determined by the people who are in charge at that point in time. There was a lot of news going around about some expensive gift, and there was a lot of speculation that some gift had been given, and then I don't want to go into the stories because they haven't been substantiated, okay? But the allegations were that apparently a gift was given to Prime Minister Khan and his spouse, and they did not give it to the Tosha Khana. But again, like I said, I can't say this. This is speculation. There's a lot of stories. What I can say for certain is that under pressure of all of these stories, we see a couple of interesting activities happen. So what happens is that around, I think, 2020, 2021, yes, in that particular tax year, under the scrutiny of the media and the pressure, Prime Minister Khan actually goes ahead and files his taxes 2 months before he normally does annually. And when he files his taxes, he actually declares an item on them from the Tosha Khana worth approximately 11.68 million rupees. Okay? This is in his tax returns for the year 2021. Now, what I want you to do for a second is imagine 11.68 million Pakistani rupees multiplied by 2, because remember what the formula is. The formula, as set by the government once they've determined the price, is that if you want to purchase it, you will pay 50%. So the actual value of that item was twice what was declared on his tax statement in 2021. And again, I will say the actual value is determined by the powers that be at that given point in time. However, the Pakistani information, the cabinet division, was told, we need to know the details. We want to know the details. What is this item? Don't you want to know? I want to know. What is this item?
Of course I want to know, but I think that so many people have tried and they have failed. We might never find out unless there is somebody who is very brave enough to whistle blow this and bring this to light, or if somebody is out there who is willing to share that information. You might never know.
Since we don't know what this gift is, we don't know who gave it, we don't know when it was received, so we don't know how long he held on to it before declaring it in his tax returns. Because again, I will remind you that the declaration and the tax returns was done under a lot of pressure. So again, it's ambiguity, it's a question mark. He could have gotten it a year before, 6 months before, 2 years before. We don't know.
Okay, so we have established a pattern here, and now coming to the final points, and I would love to know what happened to the Ferozwala land, where it is now, who owns it?
The Ferozwala land was sold in 2019 by Prime Minister Khan and his sisters to a single buyer. The interesting part is that when they did sell it, they declared that on their tax return. But here's the interesting part about the sale deed, which we've also shared, is that, and this is interesting from the angle that you must keep in mind that the Prime Minister has always talked about A, transparency, and B, being a civic citizen of Pakistan and coming forward and paying your taxes and, not trying to avoid paying taxes or, things like that. This land was actually broken up into 80 chunks.
80 chunks? Was he developing some kind of colony, making plots, selling it to different people? That's very, very strange. Why would he do that?
Once you divide it into 80 pieces, then the property value of each piece comes to approximately 40 lakh rupees, and property that is 40 lakh rupees and under will not be taxed. So the buyer gets away without paying taxes.
So I suppose we will never find out how much money was saved or what the number was, but this was definitely an attempt to save money by selling the whole property to an individual and then saving the tax, the money that should go to the government, by breaking it down into small pieces. That's completely against what we hear in the slogans.
Whatever that amounts to. I would say even if it amounts to like 10 rupees, you're still helping somebody avoid paying tax when you claim to do otherwise.
Thank you very much, Shumesa, for this conversation. We found a lot about Ferozwala files and some other properties that Imran Khan owned and did not share the information with the public at time when it was required. If you want to know more about that, you have to go to factfocus.com, where you can find this story and other